Zero Trust has come a long way, and I'm really excited today to talk to Dr. Zero Trust, Chase Cunningham, because he, after John laid the groundwork for the both of us actually, he took over his spot at Forrester Research and built the ZTX framework. We're going to learn all about this today and about crucial success factors of Zero Trust. Welcome to ON2IT. My name is Lieuwe Jan Koning, and here from the offices in Plano, Texas at ON2IT, we bring you the next episode of Threat Talks. Let's get on to it.
Welcome to Threat Talks. Let's delve deep into the dynamic world of cybersecurity.
Like I said, our guest of today is Chase Cunningham. Chase, thrilled to talk to you. We have something in common. Huh?
It's, a little bit. A little bit in common.
This Zero Trust thing that people may have heard of.
Yeah.
When did you start practicing Zero Trust?
Well, what's funny was when I came to Forrester after the military and government work, they actually kind of told me, like, hey, you're going to cover ZTE from John. And actually, to be honest, I was a little bit pissed because I was like, I don't want to pick up somebody else's laundry. But then when I started really looking at his concept as far as, because I was a red team guy, like, would it have been useful for the defender as far as when we were red teaming them? I was like, wow, this makes lots of sense. And so that was kind of my first, I guess, eye-opening moment of like, oh, this is what it looks like. And it actually would have been kind of bad for me as the bad guy. And then I started going forward with it from there. So yeah, it was funny because John tried for a long time to get me to come to Forrester earlier, and I didn't. And then when I did, he left, and I had to kind of pick up where he left off. So it's, it's just kind of how things work out.
Yeah. It's to me, it's the first time you actually, when Zero Trust was there, it's like, yeah, we really should be doing this. And finally, with something, we had, of course, the layer defense, but it was all a bit theoretical in my mind, and it all really depended on how you're actually going to put it in practice, right? And Zero Trust is really structural. And it started out as this networking concept. When did you pick it up actually? Because now it's really a strategy, yes?
2016, 2017.
Yeah. But was it still a networking?
It was
architecture more or less, because that's how it all started.
Yeah, it was very big on segmentation gateway, network architecture, packets sort of thing. And I just, again, fortuitously, the good folks at Forrester were like, let's think bigger. And they kind of let me think a little bit bigger than that. Because it was, at Forrester, you're kind of like a journalist almost. So they were cool enough to let me expand my coverage area to go beyond just network.
Yeah. And what struck me, John once explained it to me, is that at Forrester you don't have to work on a real working product. It doesn't have to be real or around the corner yet, but you can actually imagine how the world should be, because he in his mind created the segmentation gateway. It wasn't there.
Yeah.
Again, we're now so used to it. We call it differently, next generation firewall. That's funny, yeah?
Yeah.
Can you explain a little bit about your work at Forrester, because you created the ZTX, Zero Trust Extended framework.
Yeah, so that was cool, because when I was looking at Zero Trust, like, John had done a good job of laying out the concept and the theory and kind of the, I guess you'd say, like, on the mountaintop, the dude with the big beard reading the tablets of thou shalt do this thing.
Big beard as well.
Yeah. But from the follow-on side of that was really like, okay, well, as a practitioner, everybody in our space loves frameworks. They like matrices. They like concrete approaches to problems. So I was like, let's take John's super concept and theory and kind of approach to the problem, and let's look at the market, and then can we put it into a framework? And again, like, the whole story of my life, I guess, could be I'm just bumbling my way into lucky places. Like, we just happened to launch the framework maybe 18 months before COVID hit, and then everyone had to be remote. And that framework plus the market plus COVID just all kind of gelled and took off, and everybody was moving to that model anyway. So it was,
what's it about?
I mean, the whole framework is, if you look at it, really, there's core things that you have to take care of, right? Which is data. And it's the Willie Sutton thing of, why do you break into banks? Well, that's where money is. So for us in cyber, it's about data. So that's the core of the model. And then around it, there are things that make it work together, architecture, automation, orchestration, visibility, and analytics. And those are what make things interoperate. And of course, APIs are a beautiful thing. And then on the other side is, well, what are the other component pieces of that framework that you need to enable ZT? And to your point, like, no one, I think, should ever say like in Dominic's Patry, thou shalt only do these things for ZT. It's a framework. It's meant to be referenced. It's meant to be like, okay, well, I have a user problem. I do users this and data this and network that, whatever. A lot of times, maybe it's a cyber issue or maybe it's a computer scientist issue, but we, in my opinion, we get too like dogmatic about, I have to do ZT for identity. And it's like, okay, well, identity also.
Yeah, we like lists and
checkboxes. It's like
really the agile thing is a development thing, but not
for us. Yeah, which is fine, but I mean, we just got to think, how things interoperate, and that's the framework goal, was to say there is a market, there's thousands of vendors. If we can map those vendors into this matrix, this framework, then we understand which things go where to solve what problem.
When you started this, was there a particular area that was left alone or not really, that didn't have an attention of vendors, or it's like an empty void that needed filling?
The one that stuck out to me, that still sticks out to me, honestly, is data, as far as a straight up security control capability. And I say that because DLP came along a long time ago, right? But anybody like myself included that actually tried to do DLP as an architect, you want to jump off a building. I mean, DLP was miserable. So now we've got like DSPM and some of these other data security control things that are out there. I still think that if you really wrap your head around it, look at the market and then look at zero trust, there's not a whole lot of really solid vendor solutions that do data security in line with zero trust kind of conceptually. But we're better than we were 10 years ago.
Yeah, the only technology I think that works here is that you encrypt all data and then basically you turn it into a key management problem. So suppose I want to save a document I only want to share with you. On my computer, I would encrypt it with my key, put it in a central spot, but nobody can read it, but you can, because we share a key somehow.
Yes,
that actually works, because then I don't care where we can use any Dropbox or Twitter or whatever where we put our data, and then I
think we'll get there, though. I think like now we're starting to see not to throw the Q word out there, but some of the quantum stuff I think is going to be applicable in the context. And then also being able to kind of have these policy-based controls, so that, like you say, you can do key management without basically wanting to run in front of a bus, because PKI
really hard.
Is not fun.
Really, no, and most organizations don't get it. Well, maybe most PKI instructions I see are about signing your internal certificates.
Yeah,
that is PKI, but it's certs. Yeah, indeed. But we want encryption of data, right? And that's but it's hard. I mean, how would you do this? I mean, you have a Word document you want to share with a customer, for example. Yeah, there's some people use WhatsApp or Signal to send it over. It's really hard to.
People on G Suite and people on O365, and it's just
there's no way.
It's a Rubik's cube from hell. Like
even email is better.
Yeah,
and I don't really like email, honestly.
But
at least it's the standard.
It's something
in some way,
right?
Shall we talk about a few success factors? Because let's face it, when you started, and especially when John started, when was his
2010 for John?
2011, for his no
more
QE centers. Yeah. So that's so funny. I hand it out to many customers still, and it's still current.
Yeah.
And that's almost 2 decades ago that he thought of it, and it's amazing. Not many things in.
Not a lot of strategies stand the test of time like that. Yeah.
Yeah, indeed. It's amazing, and still valid. Maybe the terms are a little bit different. I mean, back then it wasn't called cybersecurity, I believe.
It was information assurance.
Information assurance, exactly. I can imagine. But it has grown a lot. So what do you think are success factors here? Why?
I mean, I think honestly, one really good kind of example of what zero trust looks like in practice is what happened to Google after Operation Aurora, right? So Aurora, they got things kind of sideways with the whole, fallout that happened there. But then they took a step back and they said—
Can you explain what Aurora is?
So Aurora was, I mean, without going too far down the technical rabbit hole, it was basically like China maybe did a little bit of redirecting with Google stuff and kind of maybe, looked at some information they shouldn't have. And it was Google. So there's a problem there. And Google paused and backed up and said, okay, well, obviously there's an issue with how we're doing things enterprise level. Let's change the model. And their model that they moved to, they call it Beyond Corp, but they openly reference zero trust. And that's another thing I remind people is you can call it whatever the heck you want to, but the mantra, the practices remain the same. But since they've moved to that model where it's cafe style infrastructure, a lot of people use Chromebooks because there's no operating system for ransomware to get you. Changing the way that they do authentication, 2FA, MFA, like all that stuff. They've had zero issues since then.
Yeah, okay, yeah, but I always think that's nice for Google because they make their own apps.
Well, they
right?
print money too. Yeah,
that too.
I mean, they're never going to be out of cash. Yeah.
But they figured out a way to turn information into money. Yeah, it's amazing. Yeah. Now it's very common, but but the thing is, Google, everything is a web app. And I've not seen this in the real world, actually, in the enterprise.
Yeah, usually it's a hybridized kind of like.
Yeah, there is still some kind of Windows 2003 and now 2025, so it's still there because there's no other way. And yeah, there's no way you can access this from a Chromebook.
Sure, and I think that the twist on that for some folks is like there are better nowadays, right? In 2025, 2026 too. There are ways that we're getting to where, you know what, if you got some app that you just can't migrate to the cloud or change the approach, we can kind of zero trusty, bail and wire and duct tape, make it work where we can get to it in a zero trust approach.
Yeah, wrap it in something that is true. That's true. Yeah, but it doesn't always work like that. I mean, another example then is a Windows app that needs to be on VDI or Windows laptop or Windows client operating system and has an ODBC connection to the database. I mean, how are you ever going to do that?
Yeah. Well, and then that's where that also goes into that concept that John's talked about for a long time and I think is applicable in kind of a military strategic context, which is a contested space. There's some stuff I just can't fix. So if I can't fix it, what resources do I kind of say, okay, I've done everything I can. It's a risk. Like we just have to accept it as it is and go forward from there. Because you can continue dumping money down the black hole of cyber and it won't ever get a return on that value. But part of, I can't remember who said it, but part of good strategy is knowing what is not worth wasting time on.
Yeah. It's all about prioritization. Yeah. I think that to me is what step 3 in zero trust brings you. Because once you know what you need to protect, then you're going to, that's the beauty of the model, I think, that you instead of trying to fix the whole problem at once, you'll split your whole environment into one, into a couple of tech services, and you solve the small problem a couple of times. And you can prioritize which problem you like to be fixed most.
And not every problem is going to be solved the same way with the
or
same.
At all.
Yeah. Sometimes I just go.
We have a lab.
Yeah.
I don't care.
It's a problem. Yeah. It's
really,
risk. It's big deal, right? If stuff goes sideways, who cares?
The worst thing that could happen is that it fills your bandwidth and that others are that your IP gets on a block list. That's my biggest concern there. And that's not really a data security problem. Right?
No, that's not even a thing where I would like lose sleep over, So I think that, exactly. And I think too that there's honestly, there's a lot more value for folks that do MSSP and service offerings in zero trust world that people give themselves credit for. Like, I think we need more of that because most businesses, unless they're enterprise or whatever else, they would be so much better off to bring in partners that would help them do this.
Yeah, do you see that a lot, that people try to do it themselves?
Yeah, and I'm always like, why? Like I run a small business. I hate doing my taxes and bookkeeping. Guess what? I have someone do it for me.
Yeah.
So why would I not do that for cyber? It's one of those ones of I do workshops with people all the time. And I talk them out of doing zero trust themselves. Like you need a partner.
Why is it you think that people?
Because it makes security, I think, is one of those things where it feels personal, right? Like it's my business. I should secure it. It's my responsibility, whatever else. And it's like, yeah, totally. I get that. But if you're not good at something, you don't have time and resources and capability, like bring someone else along with you. Because I promise you, if you're not going to dedicate it to you, especially in cyber, you'll get it wrong. And worse than not doing it is probably getting it wrong. Yeah. Misconfigurations ain't good.
Yeah, that's actually a big problem, misconfigurations. I mean,
just ask, all those companies have been breached about their misconfigs,
Yeah, well, we recently had a breach with Salesforce a couple of months ago.
Yeah.
Again, remember the app. That's also funny, yeah. So in my mind, it's Salesforce that got breached, but it's actually one of their subsidiary, their suppliers.
Partner, yeah.
So yeah, indeed. And there you could actually block access.
Yep. It
from
was
IP
just a
addresses.
misconfig. It was a policy problem.
Yeah, misconfig. Yeah, but at least the suboptimal config. If I look at config from a zero trust perspective, the first thing I'm saying, let's close off everything and then open very specific things. In this case, you could configure, I only want this API to be accessible from these IP addresses. And since most organizations have a SASE solution, meaning they can control where the traffic is from, and from which IP it comes from, now then you can actually tell your SaaS solution, in this case, this app in Salesforce, to only accept logins or queries or whatever from that IP address. So nobody else can, unless they are on your network. But that's
a different story.
Yeah, a different story, even harder. But even the established security companies, except Okta, by the way.
Well, and I mean, Okta's learned because they, kind of had some issues. So it's so a couple oopsies.
Yeah, do you think it's true that if you have been breached, that you are better then after it?
I
mean, the stock price of it always strikes me. Citrix has breach after breach after breach, and in a very But Citrix is their access gateway is a security product, right? And the security product gets breached over and over and over again. But the stock price.
I wrote a whole book on that one called "By the Breach." So the method there tells you like the market doesn't care as much as you would think about a breach, which is interesting. Like T-Mobile, I mean, I think they had 3 breaches in a year that were all the same sort of thing. And you're sitting there going like, wow, wouldn't this crash their stock? Nope. Their stock was up.
It's weird, huh?
Yeah, it's crazy. When you really think about it, it's just a person, you go, how does that work? That you continue to fail at something and yet your value goes up.
It's mind-boggling. I mean, I remember when I got into cybersecurity, was a long time ago. And I thought, well, yeah, people are not paying attention too much because the problem isn't apparent enough. But it's now crazy apparent.
Now it's very
unless I might be in my security bubble. I know.
I mean, I'd watch the news, like CNBC and the market stuff like that and whatever. I mean, I mine your database for SEC notifications every day.
Yeah.
And I see them come in. I'm like, wow. I mean, they even went after donuts. Like Krispy Kreme got breached.
Yeah.
And Krispy Kreme. What's funny is Krispy Kreme's stock went down worse than a cybersecurity company that had a breach.
Yeah.
And you're sitting there going, like, how does that play? How does that work?
Yeah, so a success factor, so I thought that a success factor of Zero Trust would be, let's have the problems more apparent in the news.
Yeah.
Apparently, no. Apparently, it's not a success. It might even be the other way around.
I think, there's got to be some social dissonance theory or something that goes on here where people. I think it is people just get so inundated with it, and I mean the other thing too is at a market level, like we're bound to these services and capabilities. So even if there's a breach, if it doesn't personally make me miserable, I really don't care. What are you gonna do? Send me another life alert thing? Okay, so what?
So then again, what did help the rise of Zero Trust?
COVID actually helped a lot because so many businesses had to move towards remote all the time, and they had to basically.
So it was an opportunity to start over.
Yeah, and it was a greenfield environment, and people had to have some way to connect, and it helped a lot of CISO people that I knew because they were like, "Oh, thank God, I can finally have a reason to do what I want to do and get people off of some of these legacy, junk things."
So, and is there any role for the government? You think? I mean, we had the executive order, for example.
Well, we have a $2-point-something billion Zero Trust office now inside of the Pentagon. So they're hustling along. Like I think the Marine Corps has done a pretty good job on their ZT thing. The Air Force is pretty far ahead. The Navy has a program called Full Steam. So, the services are doing things. I think the Office of Congress definitely needs to fix it because they just had another breach, which sucked for them. But they weren't working anyway. So that's what it is.
Yeah, we're recording this at the.
Yeah, right. They're not working right now. Yeah. Which, by the way, the FAA made me circle the Dallas airport for forever last night because there was only they said we have one tower, and when we landed, they were.
I'm scheduled to go back to my country tomorrow, so I don't know.
It's a long swim. Yeah, it's a long swim.
Yeah, I'll stick around. All right, well, Chase, it was really great talking to you, but we're not done. We should talk more. Yeah, because this future thing that we talked about, AI and stuff, deserves
It
the
kind of
next
has to have its own episode.
Yeah, a little bit, little peek into the future. We'll do that next time. To our viewers, thank you very much for tuning in today. If you liked what you saw today, press the like button. It helps us spread the word further. And there's also a subscribe button and a bell that you get that when you press it, you'll get a notification for next time. And next time, we have Dr. Chase Cunningham again. So why won't you press it? Thank you very much for tuning in. See you next time.
Thank you for listening to Threat Talks, a podcast by ON2IT Cybersecurity and M6. Did you like what you heard? Do you want to learn more? Follow Threat Talks to stay up to date on the topic of cybersecurity.